All right, welcome back. Now, people who follow me for a long time, sometimes some cases are strange. They got a lot of holes in them, and I tend to make more than one video about some cases. This one of them. But I'm not gonna deal with my opinion or what I think or my emotions, what I feel. No superstition. I question the details of this case based on testimony from multiple people, including the father and some of the neighbors. I'm going to play the comments from the father and from the neighbors, then explain to you why I don't believe the full story given by the father. Don't believe it. It's just my personal opinion. Because his story, if you ask me, does not add up. Nobody else is going to do this type of work. We need to understand that. Nobody's going to do investigative work like this. Nobody. Because society, they are into sacrifices. Period. And I suspect this was a sacrifice.
This past week has been a nightmare for Wesley Grist.
It's a horrible tragedy, big time. One that I have to relive almost every day.
Last Monday, in this Edmonton neighborhood, Grist's 11-year-old son Cash was attacked and killed by two very large dogs. Cash had been visiting his father from BC. Grist says he was working outside the house, and his son had just come back from the store with some snacks.
Just before he went inside, he came over, gave me a hug, and he told me he loved me, and told him I loved him, and I told him I was like, I'll be in a few minutes.
He does not know exactly what happened next.
And I walked in the house, and when I walked in, I was seeing something like, I thought that I heard the dogs making a commotion, and I seen a mess, and I didn't know what it was, what I was looking at. Nobody wants to see any child like that.
Okay. This is the statement, one of the statements that makes me question his side of the story. So the boy went to the store to get some snacks. And when the boy came back, he stopped in the garage, right? The garage of the house, of the home, is right in front. Dad's in there. I got something for him. Go in the garage before I go into the home. According to his story. His son said, I love you, Dad. Love you, son. I'll be in a few minutes. According to his story. And then you heard what?
And when I walked in, I was seeing something like,
He does not know exactly what happened next.
And I walked in the house, and when I walked in, I was seeing something like, I thought that I heard the dogs making a commotion, and I seen.
You heard the dogs making a commotion? What kind of commotion? Like, what did you hear exactly is my question. Because people understand when we get the details of these types of stories, there's always screaming involved. There's always screaming involved. Most people are alerted from the screaming. He's being attacked. Was there no screaming? Just no screaming. And there was a fatality in less than 10 minutes? No screaming. What's the commotion you heard? Another thing. You, the father or parent, you know that the boy doesn't live with you, right? Right? The dogs have been in their domain, their territory. You know that the dogs view that home as their territory. There's always an awareness of this. Always. So you would be mindful of a potential attack with your son visiting their territory. So if you heard anything, I believe the first thing that would pop into your mind is maybe the dogs have attacked the visitor. If you even hear an odd sound that doesn't even sound right, maybe a fall or some rumbling around, you're going to be like, well, the first thing you're going to think about, are the dogs launching an attack on my son? I believe that that's the first thing you would think about instinctively. You wouldn't have to try to formulate that thought. I feel like you'd instantly wonder if your son was okay. All right, just my personal belief. Let's continue.
I seen a mess, and I didn't know what it was, what I was looking at. Nobody wants to see any child like that.
And I don't like the way he said, I didn't know what it was I was looking at. Of course you knew you know what blood looked like. You know what the body looked like. You know what the body of your son looked like. What you mean you ain't know what you was looking at? Now, maybe it's the trauma, I'm sure that's what a lot of people will say, like, hey, he's traumatized, that not everything's going to make sense or sound perfect. Okay, let's continue.
But to have to be the parent and find your child like that, that's the hardest thing I've ever been through in my whole life.
Grist says the dogs belong to his roommate. Cash's mom says he told her they were Connie Corsi, the same breed as this one seen here, which can grow to more than 100 pounds. The city of Edmonton says animal control had been to the house twice this year for complaints of attacks that also took place inside the house. But Grist says these dogs had not been problematic with Cash.
I watch these dogs cuddle with him almost every day. There's never been an issue like this. There's nothing, and I would never put my son in a spot where he was at risk.
Okay, that's a problem. That statement right there, that's problematic too. It's the idea that he never saw any aggression in the dog.
Cash's parents say the dogs have been put down. For Grist, his feelings towards the animals are complicated, and he does not blame his roommate.
I'm not happy about it. The lives that ultimately resulted in my son's life ending are gone, so I can't ask for anything more than that.
He's speaking out because his roommate has been attacked online. He calls it all a distraction as he tries to grieve.
When I'm the most vulnerable, I feel like I'm being taken away from dealing with what I should be focusing on, and it's not fair to me. It's not fair to his mom. It's not fair to any of us.
So
What is he talking about? What is he talking about? The media reporting on it? That's what the media does. Why wouldn't you want increased awareness? Also, y'all just set up a GoFundMe. Why wouldn't you want the media to spread this information? It'll help your GoFundMe. Right? You got over 20,000 on that GoFundMe already. Probably a lot more money than you've ever seen in your life.
Focused on keeping his only child's memory alive.
He would want everybody just to be happy and getting along, because that's who he was. He wants everything to be beautiful, because he's beautiful. He's perfect.
Julia, Cash's father talked about the negative attention.
Okay. Okay. Feel like, that was heavy. That's just not quite the statement I would expect, Now, I shared the article last night, some of the details, but what you heard is that the father said, I would never put my son in a spot where he was at risk, and I love my son. The media fired back and said, hey, we got word from animal control that you did know about aggression in these dogs, because they responded to 2 other attacks inside that home that took place inside that home this year alone, within the past 4 months. He claims that it wasn't truly aggression, that his friend was playing with the dog, and I guess the dog accidentally bit him. In the other case, under investigation. Listen, I'm going to side with the police. I'm going to side with animal control. Because, see, animal control is full of a bunch of dog lovers. They're not going to lie about responding to a dog attack. He said there was nothing that gave him any indication that his son was in danger, meaning the dogs have never behaved in an aggressive manner. Okay, but you have those 2 cases, right? From the animal control and the police that have confirmed we've responded to 2 separate attacks at that address the past 4 months. He says they weren't really attacks. Fine.
An 11-year-old boy is dead following a dog attack here in South Edmonton. Police say they arrived on scene Monday to find the boy severely injured by 2 large dogs. They and EMS did what they could to save the boy, but he died from his injuries. Police say it happened around 8 p.m. Monday. The 2 dogs reportedly belonged to a person living in the home the child was visiting at the time of the attack.
This is terrible. I'm so sorry for that family. How devastating.
This nearby neighbor devastated to hear the news. She believes the dogs in question, now being held by Animal Care and Control while police investigate, also attacked her dogs and neighbor, who was pet sitting for her 1 year ago.
She was just walking the dogs on leash on the sidewalk, and they had 2 huge dogs. We thought they were bull mastiffs, and they were blocked by a tiny little baby gate, and they came flying out of the house, attacked my dogs, attacked my neighbor.
Though she regrets not.
So, because this neighbor didn't report it, it's not in the official records. So we're left to either believe this neighbor or not believe her. I believe her. I believe this was a 3rd display of aggression by these dogs. Testimony from neighbors. Let's listen to another neighbor. Multiple neighbors testified to the aggression of these dogs. It's incriminating, if you ask me.
To tragedy in Edmonton now. An 11-year-old boy is dead, killed by 2 large dogs at a home he was visiting. Animal control officers say they were called to that same home twice this year. The attack has left neighbors shaken with more questions than answers. CTV's Nav Senga is following the story.
Animal control officers have been to this home before. This year, they responded to 2 attack complaints that occurred inside. Police say this latest deadly attack also took place inside the home, and it happened when the 11-year-old boy came to visit someone who lived here. This video shows the scene Monday evening. Police cars, fire trucks, and EMS can be seen lined up the block. Police say they came to this home just before 8 p.m. When they arrived, they found a severely injured 11-year-old boy. In a news release, they described the animals that attacked him as 2 very large dogs. Police attempted life-saving measures until EMS arrived, but the boy died. The 2 dogs were taken by animal control peace officers. Video shows the moments before the dogs were loaded up and taken away. You can see police and a woman standing outside the animal control vehicle before the woman grabs a flashlight and heads to the backyard. One neighbor I spoke with says you could hear the 2 dogs fighting with one another constantly.
We've never even...
Did y'all hear that? This neighbor right here said you could hear the dogs fighting constantly.
Neighbor I spoke with says you could hear the 2 dogs fighting with one another constantly.
I believe this neighbor too. I believe they always showed aggression. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like a normal thing for these things to display aggression. So normal that the father doesn't even refer to it as aggressive behavior. That's what I think.
Says you could hear the two dogs fighting with one another constantly.
We've never even came into contact with these dogs, and I'm glad we haven't. But my kids could have potentially come into contact with these dogs, so it's pretty alarming. So it's scary.
Police say the dogs belong to a person who lives at the home. An autopsy is scheduled for tomorrow.
Okay. So here's a fourth witness, a fourth case where the dogs displayed aggression. I don't buy this story from the father that he has never seen the dogs behave in an aggressive manner. Not one bit. Don't believe that from the owner either, because those are her dogs. He is the one that told her that they were cane corso. Generally, women don't tend to train their dogs to be peaceful to each other. It's a pattern. And it's not just women. Dog lovers in general, I would say equally, allow their dogs to bark incessantly. Don't tell me they never showed aggression. I don't believe that. These things are said to have been bred to kill bears, fight bears. I mean, really. But this is the GoFundMe they set up. They've reached 29,000. Their goal is 40,000. All right. How much do you think is the average cost of a funeral for a child? Do y'all know they plan on live streaming the funeral? How many of y'all heard or read that report? It's a recent report. They are sitting up here talking about how much they want privacy. But they are about to live stream the funeral. Okay, now you can get cremation service, range from what, 1,000 to 3,000? I guess a funeral is about 7,000. I get what it is, 10,000 the upper area, the upper limit for a funeral. How much does a funeral cost in 2023? I'm looking at numbers like $7,000. Average cost with viewing and burial is $7,848. Why are we setting the GoFundMe at 40,000? You know, listening to the father, it sounded like his speech was slurred. Now, some people have a lisp. Some people just sound funny. You know, their tongue does funny things when they talk and words are slurred. But I noticed a bit of a incoherent, slurring babble coming from the father. Is he clean? You know, people who are not clean, they usually don't walk around with tens of thousands of dollars in their account. But do you know how wide their eyes would be? How much their face would light up if they did? They checked their account one day and it was a nice whopping $40,000 in there. Well, I understand you can get a cremation for about $1,000 to $3,000. Are y'all gonna have an open casket? He was mutilated. Well, you're not gonna have an open casket. Well, I hope not. Dog attack victims 11 or 13 and under usually attack from the neck up. How much could it possibly cost? This sounds fishy to me, if you ask me. And look, the median cost of a funeral with cremation is even less. And they're going to live stream the funeral. Why? To get attention for the GoFundMe? Maybe to reach the goal? They're almost there now. They're at 30,000. Already at 30,000. Haven't even had the funeral yet. I don't know. A lot of strange things in this case. It was only about 10 minutes. It usually takes longer to kill someone. You know, unless it's a extremely small person. This looked like a fairly big boy. He didn't scream. Not once. Not once. And had he screamed, you didn't hear it? Those screams. Are you saying those screams were not part of the commotion that you claim to have heard? I don't know, man. I'm having a hard time believing this story. Hard time believing this story. Again, exactly what was the commotion that you heard? It didn't describe it or nothing. See, in moments like that, moments like this, you give all the little details. You're like, yeah, I heard a noise. It sounded like such and such. I thought it was such and such. You describe, you're descriptive. Because that sound that you heard burns into your memory after you find out that the noise you heard was the dogs killing your son. You'll never be able to get that sound out of your head. But how did he describe it? How did he describe the sound?
Just before he went inside, he came over, gave me a hug, and he told me he loved me, and told him I loved him, and I told him I was like, I'll be in a few minutes.
He does not know exactly what happened next.
And I want to know what was said, because they only gave us snippets of the full interview. Why? Share the whole thing, please.
And I walked in the house, and when I walked in, I was seeing something like, you know, I thought that I heard the dogs making a commotion, and I seen a mess, and I didn't.
Making a commotion. He said the dogs not his son making a commotion. So the sound he heard was dog sounds? What kind of sounds? What can you hear from a dog when you're in a different room? You can, you really can't hear their nails clanking against the ground or nothing like that. They'd have to bark or growl. Or you might hear some fumbling around. But if that was the case, you didn't hear no screams from an 11-year-old? You didn't hear dad, help? I mean, I've shared stories where they've had the actual footage where they share the actual footage with sound. Y'all remember with the 2-year-old, several cases we heard the screaming ourselves from the video footage that was picked up. Several stories where we saw people running to the victim, multiple people. You can't see the victim, but you can hear the screams. Multiple stories like that. If 2-year-olds are scream, this 11-year-old didn't scream? I don't know. So I'm going to keep my ear to the streets, see if anybody talks about this, ask these questions. Now, there's a lot of talk about whether or not this was a real story. Some people are saying that this was scripted. And I guess that's something that people do nowadays, where they'll create false news. Now, if that's the case, then that's a strange display of entertainment, if you ask me. Now, I don't know if it's a real story or not. That's strange. Yeah, there are a lot of people saying that this was fake and this was scripted. It was like a scene. Okay, maybe it was. If it was, I would expect it to. Why does it read like an actual report? And I'm only pointing this out because I've never heard of media outlets to do this. That's pretty strange. And again, I don't know if this was actually scripted or not. But if you read the article, it reads as if it's a real case. But let's assume that this was scripted. Then it was scripted reality. This happens all the time. People pay money for a seat. They show up and there's a dog right there. On the live stream, I shared other reports where people requested to be moved to a different seat, got attacked. There's a recent story where the person next to him had a dog and the dog began to pass gas. I think they compensated them $1,500 or something. This happens all the time. So let's say it was scripted. It's scripted reality. And if it is scripted, kudos to them. Because you got me. But let me tell you, if it was scripted, I appreciate them doing it. Yeah, draw some attention to what we go through. To what dog critics go through. I mean, like, if this was scripted, it sounded like a somewhat anti-dog person wrote the script. What was the plan of the script? To expose people with fake service dogs and fake needs? She owned them in this little back and forth. She owned these nutters. All they could do was throw insults. So listen, if it was scripted, shout out to the writers. Shout out to the writers. I don't care if it was scripted or not. This is what we go through. We got to deal with people and their worthless mutts in public spaces like airplanes, hospitals. What about the people who are allergic? Like the character she played, if this is scripted. What about the people with xenophobia? Like the character that this woman played mentioned. If this was a script, that was the best script I seen this year. It's the most valuable script I ever seen in my life. Make more. And remember, this thing went viral. This video went viral. You ask me, yeah, make more. If they're going viral, make more. And thank you. This is what we got to deal with. And when we object, to their dog, being subjected to their dog, essentially, we get projected as the villains, the bad guys. The media starts to put out articles projecting those people as the villains. How many stories have I shared like that? They do that all the time on Reddit. These media outlets do that all the time. They'll look at they follow anti-dog platforms, and they create articles of exchanges that take place in these forums, arguments or stories that they share. Y'all remember the lady who refused to let her parent, or refused to go to a family gathering because of her mom's dog? She was like, hey, I got kids, don't feel safe, I'm not going over there. She told her parents, she's like, look, we're not coming to the family meeting if you're going to have those dogs there. She refused to get rid of dogs, so she didn't go. Y'all remember that story? That was just a story somebody shared on Reddit. They didn't even get that from an article nowhere. They do that all the time. The media is all pro-dog. They're all pro-dog. So if we got a media apparatus out there that put out anti-dog scripts like this, bring it. That's exactly what we need. That's what I've been looking for. And man, if I had the means, I'd make stuff like this. But I didn't see the name of any airline, which made me think that it possibly could have been a script. I went back over it to see if I saw the name of an airline. I don't see the name of an airline. I don't see anybody's name, no specific names at all. Again, which suggests it could have been a script. So I'm open to the possibility it was a script, but it don't change much for me. And you know what else? The video I made, both of them, was me having an anti-dog rant in response to scenarios like this. And I'm happy that they're up. So even if it's a script, I got the rant off. The world know what I think about these worthless, raggedy, turd-faced mutts. And I enjoy it. That's what I do. I get online, I rant about how much I hate these things, how worthless they are. So it is what it is. But yeah, if y'all hear any more details in this case, any attorneys, any lawyers out there, isn't this y'all's thing? Juicy stories, crime stories. I know lawyers here on YouTube who make whole channels just covering crime stories. Where y'all at now? Do you have any thoughts on this? You know, I've had nurses and doctors leave comments. Any crime lawyers? What do y'all think? I got questions. 10 minutes? So the attack took place and was over in 10 minutes? By the time you went up there, all you saw was, his body and laid in his blood and the dogs? No screams? Okay. All right. Shout out to everybody able to join me for this brief pre-work live stream. Let's have a productive Monday. Remember, if Monday is bad, most likely your whole week gonna be bad. So be sure to have a productive Monday. Anti-service dog, pro-service dog. Yeah, certainly not out here. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a good question. If it was scripted, like what would be the point? What would be the purpose of it if it was scripted? Because the woman with the affliction, You know, I would think if it was scripted, it would be some dog lovers. And maybe the woman would have a panic attack right there on the spot. The dog owner didn't put up a sound. I don't like the way she responded. She didn't say what her medical condition was. She didn't share the law that she didn't have to disclose what her medical condition was. I think that if it was scripted, they'd script it so that people with service dogs would know what to say in situations like that. You know, it'll be for something like that. But that's not what happened. She just sat there like a lump on a log, talking, giving a realistic response. This dog has saved me so many times. You're so mean. You're so mean. And then they showed the other lady sat beside the dog lover and started rubbing her service dog. Now, somebody pointed out, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to just walk up and start petting service dogs. So if it was owners while they're having a seizure, I don't know. These things are totally worthless. This thing was up on her lap. And then the girl, the dog critic, she said, how do I know it's not going to leap up and jump onto me? I've had a history of these things launching attacks. She said, I hope that thing kills you. That sounds like something that a person would say in a real scenario. So good acting if that was a script. You know? I want to know. I want to find out. Hopefully it comes out. I want to know if it was a script. If it was a script, I want to know what's going on. Who are the writers? And are you doing more? So that's too bad. Because if it was, I hoped it was real so that we could have a talk with this lady. And who knows, if it was real, then the writers might be Reddit users or, followers of the channel. Anyway, let me get out of here and knock this Monday out. I will see y'all on the next live stream.